All right, well, the former vice president took to MSNBC Monday night. Unfortunately, I saw it live, using the opportunity to attack President Trump while promoting her new book, saying she still believes Trump is a, quote, communist dictator.
Right now, we are dealing with, as I called him at my speech on the ellipse, a tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now in Donald Trump.
A little bit of irony there. She called President Trump a communist while endorsing the Democratic Socialists here in New York, Mamdani. Irony. Some Democrats had initial hesitation when being asked to endorse her for president, and Harris had no problem calling each of these Democrats out in her memoir one by one. There was Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Governors J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom. They all either stalled or ghosted the request, according to Harris. And President Obama told her she had to earn it. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi made the argument, quote, we should have some kind of primary, not an anointment. And Pritzker stalled, saying he was in the middle of a conference. And Newsom was hiking when she called, and he did not even call her back. Ouch. It's worth noting that both Pritzker and Newsom did endorse her within days. And here's what she had to say this morning on The View.
That night, I grieved in a way that I have not since my mother died.
Wow.
And the pain was, it was not at all about losing a race. I knew what it was going to mean for the country. All I could say over and over again is, my God, my God, my God.
Now, Kamala attacks just about everyone but herself for her campaign loss, and it's not helping her because, according to CNN, her approval rating continues to plummet.
I would just say that if you want a messenger to go against Donald Trump, you could do far better as Democrats than Kamala Harris. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look at her net favorable ratings nationwide. You know, back in October of 2024, she was at -5 points. Not exactly great, but pretty close to the zero mark, right? Pretty close to even. But now, down under she goes. She's at -13 points. That's an 8-point drop since the general election among the overall electorate. She is not well liked at this particular point.
You know, Josh, great to have you. We had your co-host on last week. He was fantastic, Smug.
Thanks for treating him well.
We will always treat him well. Look, Kamala Harris, I saw her say she never talked about election night with her husband, which I find very bizarre, like a monumental life event. They never spoke about it. She also says if she could pinpoint one reason she lost, it was time, the passing of time.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I feel like that butts up against reality pretty hard. What's so funny about this whole rollout is, you know, she writes this book. The very first interview that she does, she comes out and reminds everybody why she's an author and not a president of the United States, right? I mean, it's just one trip after another. Didn't speak to her husband about Election Day. Really? Not once? Like, nope, never came up over dinner, nothing? And then every single, whether it was reckless not to say that Joe Biden couldn't run. What was reckless is they had no Democratic Party that had any votes whatsoever to name their nominee. She's calling Trump a dictator? Well, I don't know. I thought one of the hallmarks of dictatorship was not allowing people to vote on who their nominee is. She seems like she fits the bill for that kind of thing.
Yeah, and she continues to tell an abject falsehood. She said it last night. She said it this morning. Let's listen. This is about the election.
The sitting vice president enters the race against a former president of the United States who's been running for 10 years with 107 days to go. And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century. It is the closest presidential race in the 21st century in terms of the outcome.
Okay, the wannabe Madam Vice President. Here are the facts, Laura. Trump won all 7 swing states. You know, you were leading the RNC. Electoral vote was 312 to 226. Trump was the first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years. Someone get those facts to Kamala.
Who's telling her to say this? I feel like somebody was like, just go out and say it was the closest. Everyone knows there was nothing close about this. To win the popular vote as a Republican, that was huge. I mean, Look, Kamala Harris is on this tour where she is really just trying to, I guess, blame everyone. I don't know really what the point of this book is. I said on Will Kane's show yesterday, I said, I'll save everybody the 320 pages. She lost, and this was not a close election at all, Kayleigh, because she was a bad candidate with a bad message who didn't resonate with voters, who was totally inauthentic, picked a bad vice presidential running mate as well in Walz. The whole thing is crazy. No one at all believes that this was close. We know it wasn't close because the numbers bear it out, Kayleigh, but let her go out there, I guess, and spin all this nonsense. I don't really know what the goal is.
Yeah, Rachel Maddow ever so gently asked her a somewhat difficult question. This was the only time it was even somewhat probing. Listen to this.
To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No, that's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. To be a black woman running for president of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk.
I mean, Emily, it's really shocking to hear someone say that out loud.
Well, especially because this is when I love the internet, because all of the reactions that were like, so you didn't pick him because he was gay. No, I didn't. So you did. Like, it's like she said exactly what the horror-filled Rachel Maddow was saying. So you didn't pick him because he was gay. And look, the whole point is, yet again, it's the Americans that are the bad guy, right? It's always the citizens of America, the populations, that are always the worst enemy in Kamala Harris's view. So the reality, though, is that the risk wasn't that he was gay and she was black. The risk was that she was incompetent. The risk was that she's a plagiarizing, bumbling fool, and this book tour is merely underscoring the fact that she was unprepared to be vice president, to be anything. So I hate, too, that she sort of says, like, if she had more time, then I would have. It reminds me of when guys come up to you, at a bar or in a conversation, and they're like, I almost played college ball, but then what happened was I almost went pro, but then this injury. It's like, really, bro? That means you didn't. So when I hear that from this failed presidential candidate that was a failure of vice president, it reminds me that she was only selected not because she was prepared, not because she earned it, but because her predecessor was filling a box. The president was checking a box, and that's in her eyes, too. So yet again, she not only sort of impugns the American ability for intellectualism and for what we want, but she also yet again underscores why we all breathe a sigh of relief. She was saying, oh, God, she was feeling grief. And then I love the hosts that are like, oh, wow, like it's so profound. No, it's not. You know what? I wish they would have the champion on, because then they would get a better mouthpiece for America.
Don't you love I'm not a homophobe. It's the American people that are the homophobes.
Right, exactly.
And they were so busy doing the racisms and the sexisms that we thought if we threw the homophobia in there, too, we'd have a real problem.
The idea that she needed more time, the more time we got to see Kamala Harris, the worse she looked to the American people as a possible candidate. Remember, she came out real hot, and everybody was like, Kamala Harris, this is the next big thing. And then she nosedived, and she never recovered from that. So more time, Kamala, I don't think it would have helped you out.
It wouldn't have helped you out. Rachel, I want you to listen to this one. This is a direct quote from the former vice president. Don't fall for the okie doke.
He promised the people who voted for him that on day one he'd bring down prices. He lied. We're now in a position where unemployment is up. Inflation is up. The cost of groceries is up. So, as the folks used to say, don't fall for the okie doke. Just don't.
Yeah, that last bit that's exactly why she lost. I mean, we've been talking about all these different reasons. She's so inauthentic. Not only is it, I'm a political spouse. Like, there's no way I'm not talking to my husband on election day about the election. There's no way. They also, do you remember they kissed with their masks on? And then she tried to convince everybody that she was Mamala when she actually inherited stepchildren. Like, they were like 17 or 18. So like all of us who've had like little tiny kids, that just doesn't count. Like, she's just not authentic. And those kinds of comments, again, they wanted to blame President Trump for the egg prices. He inherited all of that when he came in, and within like 2 weeks, they were trying to blame him. And then he got him down within like a month. So, this is just who she is. And you're absolutely right, Laura. The more you see her, the more you understand why it didn't work for her. And no amount of rebranding, which is clearly what this book is about, is going to undo that. She's cooked.
She's cooked. Well, we will see if she runs.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris offered up several criticisms of the Biden White House's communications team in her new book, painting a picture of a staff that did little to defend her. They had a huge comms team. They had Karine Jean-Pierre briefing in the press room every day, Harris wrote in her book 107 Days, released on Tuesday, and providing detailed insight into her ill-fated presidential run. But getting anything positive said about my work or any defense against untrue attacks was almost impossible. Harris added that the president's inner circle seemed fine with it when unfair or inaccurate stories about Harris circulated, and that it even seemed as if they decided I should be knocked down a little more. In a chapter titled July 24th, 104 Days Till the Election, Harris suggested that Biden's team was not only being unhelpful, but at times had worked against her in the past. This was total nonsense, but the White House seemed glad to let reporting about my gaffe overwhelm the significant thought in foreign relations I'd achieved. Harris wrote about the White House not pushing back against media reports she had faked a French accent in 2021. Worse, I often learned that the president's staff was adding fuel to negative narratives that sprung up around me, Harris wrote. Harris took issue in the book with Republicans who mischaracterized her role as the border czar and lamented that no one in the White House comms team helped me to effectively push back and explain what I had really been tasked to do or to highlight any of the progress I had achieved. In another part of the book, Harris wrote about how Biden began taking on water over the conflict between Hamas and Israel, saying that when polls indicated that I was getting more popular, the people around him didn't like the contrast that was emerging. Harris also provided details about her struggles with the Biden campaign staff before and after she became the nominee, writing specifically about meetings the Biden-Harris team had during the campaign in a pavilion on the White House grounds. These political briefings often made no sense to me, Harris wrote. Mike Donnellan would filter the data from the polls and present the numbers in soothing terms that the razor-thin, within the margin of error results were no cause for hair on fire, that really there was nothing to see here. Doug had wanted to stop sitting next to me because he got tired of me kicking him under the table when I asked a question and got a non-answer. My chief of staff, Lorraine Voles, turned to me as we left one of these meetings and said, "If I ever organized that sort of dog and pony bullsh, for you, you'd have my head on a platter." Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, was also quoted in the book with some strong words for the Biden team as Harris recounted an instance where his staff gauged the couple about their loyalty to Biden on July 4th, shortly before Biden dropped out of the race. "They hide you away for 4 years, give you impossible jobs, don't correct the record when those tasks are mischaracterized, never fight back when you're attacked, never praise your accomplishments. And now finally, they want you out there on that balcony, standing right beside them," Emhoff is quoted as saying. "Now finally, they know you are an asset, and they need you to reassure the American people. And still, they have to ask if we're loyal?" Ultimately, Harris concluded that the Biden White House was mistakenly operating using zero-sum thinking. "If she's shining, he's dimmed," Harris wrote. "None of them grasped that if I did well, he did well. That given the concerns about his age, my visible success as his vice president was vital. It would serve as a testament to his judgment in choosing me and reassurance that if something happened, the country was in good hands. My success was important for him. His team didn't get it.